Welcome back to the Deep End. Today we are dimming the lights a little bit. We're stepping away from the usual tech headlines and productivity hacks.
Yeah.
And we are walking into a room that feels, well, the best word might be charged.
Charged is the perfect word for it. Yeah. We are dealing with an atmosphere today that is relaxed, certainly. There's banter, there's laughter. But underneath it, there is this current of something chilling.
Chilling, but not in a scary way.
No, not scary in a horror movie sense, but chilling in the sense of raw, unexplained power. The kind of power that makes the hair on your arms stand up because your brain just can't quite process what it's seeing or hearing in this case.
Right. But at the same time, it's funny, it's witty, it's surprisingly human for something that claims to be, well, not human at all.
And that is the paradox we are exploring today. We are looking at a document that is, it's one part heavy philosophical treatise, one part psychological showdown, and one part absolute magic show. It's got a bit of everything.
It really does. But before we get the candles lit and step into the seance room, and I use that term very, very loosely, because this isn't your grandmother's parlor game, we need to set the ground rules.
Of course.
First off, a mandatory disclaimer. This podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are here to learn, to explore ideas, not to sell you a seance or endorse a specific cosmology.
Right. We are observers here, just trying to understand the material. And to be specific about what we are observing, we are diving deep into session 170 of the early sessions, book 4 of the Seth Material.
We love specificity here. Gets us right into the good stuff.
We do. And the date of record for this session is July 19th, 1965.
Vintage. I love it. Takes you right back.
It does, and we absolutely must credit the source, which is the Seth Material, and the publisher, the New Awareness Network. If you find your mind slightly blown by what we discussed today, and you probably will, you should head over to sethcenter.com/the early sessions to see the full library.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Paint the picture for us. It's 1965.
Right. We are in Pine City, New York, at the home of Bill and Peggy Gallagher, their witnesses. And we have our usual players, Jane Roberts, who is the medium, or as she calls herself, the mental medium, and her husband, Robert Butts, who is, frantically taking notes on everything.
As always, he's the chronicler.
He is. So Jane goes into a trance, and this personality named Seth comes through. But this isn't a normal session. Usually Seth is dictating a book or giving some kind of general advice. This time, there is a specific target.
A target that sounds a little ominous.
Well, in a way it is. The session is addressed to a man named Dr. Instream. He's a psychologist, an academic.
Ah, skeptic. Or at least a professional skeptic.
Exactly. He's interested in what Jane and Robert are doing. He's intrigued by the Seth case, but he is terrified of admitting it publicly. He's a closet believer, you might say.
So he wants the data, but he doesn't want his name attached to it. He doesn't want to get laughed out of the faculty lounge.
That's it, precisely. He wants proof, but he's afraid of what that proof might do to his reputation.
So Seth, being this disembodied, sass-talking intellect, decides to take the gloves off.
Completely. Seth essentially decides to give the good doctor exactly what he asked for, but in a way that mocks the very idea of asking for proof. It's a fascinating dynamic. You have a non-physical entity psychoanalyzing a psychologist.
Oh, I love that. Turning the tables.
Yeah.
So let's get into the meat of it. Section 1 of our dive today is about the invisible table. This is where Seth starts messing with our heads immediately.
It's a brilliant philosophical trap. It really is. Seth starts by talking about the concept of a trance state. Now, when you think of a trance, particularly from a clinical perspective like Dr. Instream's, what do you picture?
Someone zoning out, drool on the chin, eyes roll back in their head. Not really there. It's like a reduction of consciousness.
Exactly. You think of it as a loss of awareness, a narrowing. But Seth turns that completely upside down. He poses an analogy. Imagine a man in a deep trance. In this trance, his focus is so intense on something internal, some inner vision or thought, that he literally cannot see the physical table sitting right in front of him.
Okay, so to him, the table is invisible. It's a negative hallucination, right? His brain is just editing it out.
Right. Now, Seth asks, how do you prove to that man that the table exists? Think about it. If you say, look, it's right there. He literally can't see it because his consciousness has excluded it from his reality.
You could knock on it, I guess, make a sound.
But what if his brain just filters out the sound? What if his trance is so complete that anything related to that table is just gone.
So you're stuck. You can't prove the table exists because his reality filter has already decided it doesn't. You're speaking two different languages.
Precisely. But here is the twist, and this is the chill moment for me. Seth argues that normal waking consciousness, what you and I are doing right now, talking into these mics, is just another form of trance.
Wait, hold on. So me drinking my coffee, looking at my microphone, checking my notes, I'm in a trance. That feels wrong.
According to Seth, yes. We usually define trance as being zoned out, but Seth argues that being zoned in on physical reality is just as restrictive. He says, and this is a key insight, consciousness of any kind is merely the direction in which the self looks.
The direction in which the self looks. That's really profound.
Yeah.
It implies that consciousness isn't a state of being awake or asleep. It's a spotlight.
It is a spotlight, a focus, and right now our spotlight is hitting physical matter. We see the table, we see the microphone. But because our spotlight is so intensely focused on matter, we are blind to everything else.
So we are the man in the trance.
Yes, but instead of missing the table, we are missing the spiritual reality that is sitting right in front of us. Our table is the physical world, and we're so focused on it we can't see anything else.
So bringing this back to Dr. Instream, Seth is telling this psychologist, you think I'm the one who needs to be proven? You're the one in the trance, buddy.
Exactly. He's telling Dr. Instream that he is in a physical reality trance. He can't see Seth, the invisible table, not because Seth isn't there, but because the doctor has trained his consciousness, his spotlight, to block out anything non-physical.
That is such a power move. I'm not the ghost. You're the ghost who thinks he's real. I mean, wow.
And it gets even better. He moves from the table analogy to a dream analogy, which I think is even more relatable for most people.
Okay.
He says, and I'm quoting here, in the dream state, it would be impossible for the dreamer to prove the existence of the familiar street outside of his familiar door.
Okay, let's unpack that. When I'm dreaming, I'm, flying, or I'm back in high school again in my underwear for some reason.
Yeah.
If someone in that dream asked me to prove that my actual bedroom exists, the one I'm sleeping in, I couldn't do it.
You couldn't. It's not part of that reality construct. The familiar street of your waking life doesn't exist for you in that moment. Your consciousness isn't focused there.
It's a completely different rule set.
A different rule set, a different focus. And Seth uses this to explain why he can't prove his existence to us easily. He says, therefore, it is also highly difficult for me to prove my own existence to you, for you are not focused within my field of attention.
It's a compatibility issue. We're running different operating systems. He's on Mac, we're on PC, and the files won't open.
And different software entirely.
Yeah.
He's basically saying, I can't show you my world because you're too busy hallucinating your own physical world.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental mismatch of focus.
But Dr. Instream isn't buying this philosophy, right? He's a scientist. He wants hard data. He wants the table to float. He wants the ectoplasm.
Which brings us to the dilemma of proof. This is the second major section of the session, and it's where Seth really starts to get a little feisty.
Feisty, I like that.
Dr. Instream, representing science, wants empirical evidence, visuals, sounds, tactile proof, something he can measure and write a paper about.
Show me the money, basically, or show me the ghost.
Right. But Seth argues that this is futile. It's a rigged game. He says, and this is a direct critique of the skeptical mindset, even if I provided clairvoyance, telepathy, or materialized in front of 20 witnesses, the skeptics would just claim it was suggestion or a mass hallucination.
And honestly, he's right. If a ghost appeared in a lab today, the headline wouldn't be "Ghosts are real." It would be "Scientists discover new form of mass hysteria."
Exactly. The framework of science at that time, and largely still today, doesn't allow for the result, so it reinterprets the evidence to fit the physical trance. You find a way to explain it away.
You'd have papers on, infrasound or electromagnetic fields causing the illusion, anything but the obvious.
Anything but accepting a new reality. And Seth has some colorful language for these skeptics, by the way.
All right, I caught that. He calls them respectable fuddy-duddies.
And nincompoops.
Nincompoops. You just don't hear that enough from omniscient entities. It makes him sound like a grumpy but lovable grandfather.
He definitely has that persona. There's a real personality there. He refers to Dr. Instream as an old crony later on. There's a camaraderie there, but also a lot of teasing.
So he's poking the bear.
Constantly. But here's the interesting thing about Seth's attitude. He admits he is sly.
Sly? In what way? That's a curious word choice.
He says, I am, again, a rather sly individual. He knows that those who will not see will not see. He knows the proofs won't actually work to convince the hardliners. He's not naive about that.
So if he knows it won't convince them, why do the tricks? Why bother with the whole show?
To get the manuscript read, it's that simple. He basically says, I'll do the song and dance if it gets you to actually read the philosophy. He's using the supernatural phenomena as a hook.
That's amazing. It's essentially clickbait for the psychologist.
It is. Watch this disembodied voice shout really loud and then read chapter 4 on the nature of identity. He knows he has to give them something flashy to get them in the door.
That is hilarious. He's like, fine, I'll do a magic trick, but then you have to do your homework.
Precisely. And that leads us directly to the magic trick itself. Section 3, the voice effects.
Okay, this is the part of the transcript where I got legitimate chills. We have to remember the physical setup here. Jane Roberts is a small woman. She's not a linebacker. She's not an opera singer. She's sitting in a living room in upstate New York.
And typically when she speaks as Seth, her voice changes a bit. It gets deeper, more rhythmic, but it's still, a human voice.
Recognizably her.
Yes. But in this session, to prove a point to Dr. Instream, Seth decides to turn the volume knob to 11.
Or 12. Or maybe the knob just breaks off.
Yeah.
The notes say Jane stands up, which is apparently unusual for her sessions.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Describe it for us.
Robert Butts describes the voice as becoming massive, deafening, and trumpet-like. He actually notes in the transcript that his ears were ringing.
Ringing, like standing next to a speaker at a concert, from a human voice.
Yes. And the eerie detail, the one that makes it so hard to explain, is that Jane's mouth barely opens. Robert notes it opened maybe an inch, if that.
An inch?
An inch. Yet the sound is filling the entire house, resonating off the walls, to the point that it's physically uncomfortable for the people in the room.
It is physically disturbing. I mean, from a physics standpoint, how do you generate that much acoustic pressure without opening your mouth? Where's the sound coming from?
That's the point Seth is making. He's mocking the request for physical proof by doing something physically impossible, or at least highly, highly improbable. He jokes about it himself.
What did you say?
He jokes that even if he speaks in tones deep and ungodly as a frog's, the skeptics will just say, well, Jane has good lungs.
He's predicting their debunking in real time. Ungodly as a frog's. I love his self-description. But seriously, if a woman who weighs, 110 pounds starts sounding like a foghorn without moving her jaw, I'm going to be impressed.
You would be. Anyone would be. But Seth finds it childish.
Childish. He's doing this incredible thing and he thinks it's dumb.
He calls these displays theatrical. He essentially apologizes for doing them. He'd much rather just have the intellectual discussion. He says, I will perform these stunts only because he knows it intrigues the doctor. It's a bargain. He's degrading his own dignity as a teacher to keep the student interested.
It's like a Nobel Prize-winning physicist agreeing to juggle just to keep the freshman class from falling asleep.
A perfect analogy. And there's a factual check here that is important, something that happens after the session. Robert Butts, being the careful note-taker he is, checks on Jane. Now, if you or I shouted at top volume for an hour...
I'd be hoarse for a week.
Yeah.
I have no voice left at all. I'd be drinking tea and honey and feeling sorry for myself.
Jane had zero vocal fatigue, no hoarseness. Her throat was completely fine.
Nothing.
Nothing. Seth even points this out during the session. He says, and this is a direct quote, "You know, and I know, that it is literally impossible for a woman such as she to speak in tones as loud and deep as those which I am now using." He challenges them to explain the lack of physical strain.
See, that's the real proof. It's not the volume, but the biology. The fact that her vocal cords aren't shredded into ribbons.
Right. The effect is impressive, but the lack of a physical cause or a physical consequence is the real miracle. But Seth knows they'll ignore that too. It's data that doesn't fit the model.
So Seth has shattered the eardrums of everyone in the room. He's called the scientific establishment fuddy-duddies. Now, in Section 4, he turns his gaze back on Dr. Instream. And this is where it stops being a magic show and starts being a therapy session.
It really does. Seth starts psychoanalyzing the shrink. It's a brilliant reversal. He claims that Dr. Instream is too sly to stand up straight about his beliefs because he doesn't want the world mad at him.
Which is the fear of every academic,
Right.
The fear of peer review, the fear of being laughed out of the faculty lounge and losing your funding.
Exactly. It's career preservation. But Seth digs deeper. He asks, why is this specific doctor so interested in Seth? Why is he hovering around the edges, asking for proof but not committing?
And what's the answer?
Seth identifies the core motivation: immortality.
Oh, wow. He goes right for the jugular. Dr. Instream is an older man, right?
Yes. And Seth points out that as we age, the soul-searching aspects of facing death become very real. Dr. Instream isn't just intellectually curious, he's personally invested. He wants to know if there is something after. He wants assurance.
That's incredibly vulnerable. To have a spirit medium, or whatever you want to call it, call you out on your deepest existential fear in front of witnesses.
It is. It's a raw moment. But Seth handles it with a strange kind of grace. He promises not to play on this fear. He says it would be cruel to use the doctor's desire for immortality just to manipulate him.
So he acknowledges the fear, but promises not to exploit it.
Right. He says, I was myself an elderly gentleman, and I understand too well the soul-searching aspects of such a reality.
I was myself an elderly gentleman. That's a touching moment. Completely humanizes this booming trumpet-like voice. He's saying, I've been there. I know what it's like to stare at the end and wonder.
And that creates a rapport. He calls the doctor an old crony. He respects the skepticism. He really does. But he mocks the humility. He tells Dr. Instream that his humility is overdone.
What does he mean by that?
He's basically saying, stop pretending you're just a humble observer. You have big, personal life and death questions. Own them. Don't hide behind scientific objectivity.
Own your greatness, says the ghost. It's a call to intellectual courage.
In a nutshell, yeah.
So the formal session ends, the tape recorder clicks off. Everyone in the room probably takes a huge collective breath. But the night isn't over, is it?
No, not by a long shot. This is the after party, section 5, the midnight session.
I love that this happened. It just feels so spontaneous. It wasn't recorded initially, right? They had to scramble.
Right. They officially stopped recording at 11:45 p.m., but then they just started talking, and Seth popped back in. They had grabbed their notepads and just start writing everything down as fast as they could.
And the vibe shifts.
Completely. The lecture is over. The demonstration is over. Now Seth is just hanging out. He's in excellent good humor, according to the notes. He's joking with Bill Gallagher.
The witness, the owner of the house.
Yes. Seth calls Bill his favorite Jesuit and a romantic Jesuit.
Is Bill actually a Jesuit? Or even Catholic?
No, Bill works in advertising,
Right.
but he has this philosophical, searching quality that Seth clearly likes to poke fun at. It shows Seth's personality. He's not a robot just spitting out data. He's a guy you'd want to have a beer with if he had a body.
And Rodder, Jane's husband, makes the mistake or the brilliant move of joking about the voice effects from earlier.
He pokes the bear. He says something like, well, that was quite a show. And Seth says, oh, you want voice effects? And he does it again. Yes, but louder and longer. This goes on until 1:30 in the morning.
1:30 a.m. The neighbors must have been terrified. What is happening at the Gallagher house? Is there an exorcism going on?
The notes say the volume was so intense it hurt their ears. And again, Jane is just standing there, throwing her head back, letting this impossible sound pour out of her with no fatigue whatsoever.
It's just incredible. But amidst all this shouting and joking, there's a specific mystery that pops up. Little detail that's maybe more convincing than the loud voice. The mystery of the statue.
This is one of those parlor tricks that is actually quite hard to explain away. Bill and Peggy Gallagher had bought a statue in Ithaca, New York. Just an antique shop find. Nothing special.
Okay, a little piece of decor for their house.
Right. And out of the blue, Seth starts giving them a history lesson on this specific object. He identifies its origin, Tibet, specifically the southwestern corner.
Okay, Tibet. Specific area, that's a good start.
Then he names it. He spells it out for Robert to write down. Swassowan.
Swassowan.
Swassowan. That sounds oddly specific, not something you just make up on the spot.
Then he gives the timeline. He says the concept behind the statue is from the 12th century, but this specific carving is from the late 18th century. He's dating the antique for them. Better than Antiques Roadshow.
And then the backstory. This is where it gets wild. He says it involved a missionary named Father Hogan. He gives his age, 46.
Father Hogan, age 46.
And he says Father Hogan accepted this statue as payment for healing a local chieftain's daughter.
Whoa. That is a lot of narrative detail. Healing a chieftain's daughter, that's a whole movie plot right there.
And it doesn't stop. He then traces its journey from Tibet to Hong Kong, then by boat to San Francisco in the year 1905. Then it went to San Diego for a while. Then to New York, where the Gallaghers bought it.
This is the chill factor for me. It's one thing to talk about the nature of consciousness and the invisible table. That's abstract. You can argue that's just Jane's subconscious philosophizing. But to give a shipping route, to name a Father Hogan and give his age.
It creates such a sharp contrast. You have the high-level philosophy, and then you have this gritty, granular data that is, in theory, verifiable. Now, at the time, they couldn't just Google Father Hogan Tibet 18th century.
Right, in 1965, there was no way to check. The records would be buried in some dusty mission archives in Rome. if they exist at all.
But the specificity is the point. Seth is showing that his awareness isn't just cloudy spiritual stuff. He can focus on the history of a wooden object and read it like a book. It's a demonstration of that spotlight of consciousness he mentioned earlier.
Ah, it comes full circle.
It does. He can turn his spotlight onto the statue's past, which is a reality that is completely invisible to everyone else in the room.
It's the invisible table again. The history of the statue is the table. The Gallaghers just see a piece of wood. Seth sees the missionary, the chieftain, the boat ride to San Francisco.
Exactly. To Seth, the history is as physical and real as the wood itself. It's all just data, all just reality, waiting for a consciousness to focus on it.
So where does this leave us at the end of this absolutely wild night? We've got a deafening voice, a scared but intrigued psychologist, a detailed history lesson about a random statue, and a philosophy that says we are all sleepwalking.
It leaves us with the paradox of proof. That's the big takeaway here, I think. You cannot prove a new reality using only the tools of the old reality.
If your only tool is a ruler, you can't measure a dream, you can't measure an emotion.
Right. You'll just say it doesn't exist. And Seth's ultimate message to Dr. Instream, and by extension to us, is that we need to widen the focus. We are in a trance of physicalism. We think matter is the only thing that matters. Seth is trying to snap his fingers or, shout in a trumpet voice to wake us up.
And he's doing it with such a sense of humor. That's what I keep coming back to. He's not a stoic master on a mountain. He's sassy, he's loud, he calls people nincompoops, he's got personality.
He enjoys the game. He says, I am an educator, and as such, I am sly. He knows he has to entertain us to teach us because we have the attention spans of, well, people in a trance.
So here is the provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over while you drive home or do the dishes. If our daily life is a trance focused on physical objects and only physical objects, what are we ignoring right now? What is the invisible table sitting in your living room or your office that you literally cannot see simply because you haven't been taught to focus on it?
That is the question. What is right in front of your face that is completely outside your field of attention?
As Seth said in the session, as a quote that sticks with you, those who will not see will not see. Don't be one of those people. At least be willing to look.
And if you want to try to see a little more, we really, really encourage you to dive deeper into this material. This was just one session out of hundreds, thousands of pages.
Go to sethcenter.com/familiar sessions. Check out the books. Support the New Awareness Network. There is a mountain of material there that is just as wild and thought-provoking as this session.
It's a rabbit hole worth going down for sure, even if you remain a respectable fuddy-duddy.
Especially then, maybe. Until next time, keep your focus flexible.
And watch out for invisible tables.
See you next day.